What's going on, FA Nation? Happy Tuesday, and welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream. I am your host, James Grande, alongside Adam Ronis. Adam, what's going on, man? 9-game slate. You were on the playbook today. How are we feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good options out there tonight. We have some of the injury news. There's probably going to be some surprises, just like we saw last night with Milwaukee on a 3-game slate that ruined everything. I'm sure we'll get something tonight. It's that time. You know, it's NBA, it's March. We're getting to the end of the season, and you just have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that once you get into March in the NBA, the water's muddy. Every night, something crazy, and I'm upset that you brought us all back to last night, because that was
we gotta forget it.
That was a tough pill to swallow. But again, 9 games on tonight's slate. I mean, there are some good ones too, and let's just elephant in the room. Let's get it out of the way. Minnesota Houston is currently up to, you said 249 on DK Sportsbook. I see 248.5. Doesn't matter. It is massive. Especially for a team in Houston not playing well, but they are getting arguably the worst defense in basketball right now in Minnesota. Some other notable game totals. I mean, New York Knicks, first night of a back-to-back against Washington, 229.5. That is very juicy, very enticing. Dallas, San Antonio, 228. Still some injury news there. Phoenix, Portland, 234, and then we have a 224.5 in Brooklyn, LA. Lakers favored by 12 with LeBron expected to play there. You and I did not manifest that LeBron sitting on the podcast last night well enough. We have to re-attempt that same feat tonight. And Clippers, Golden State with no Steph Curry already rolled out, 225 there. Clippers 12-point favorites on the road. But Adam, ready to jump into the slate?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start off at point guard. We have 2 elite spend-ups, and one being Luka Doncic, still questionable with the right wrist, and Russell Westbrook in the 249 game total, fast-paced environment. Should be just chalk city. That game is going to be chalk city, as it should. If Luka plays, and let's say there's no restriction or anything, and there's not even any monitor. I mean, I assume if he plays, there's nothing capped about him at all. But do you lean Westbrook? Do you lean Luka? How are you assessing this top tier of point guards?
Yeah, I lean Westbrook. It's a better spot tonight. You talk about the game total of 249. Last time he faced them, he had 45 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. Minnesota is not a good defensive team. The Rockets really need a win here. They've been playing poorly. They're home. So, yeah, I think Westbrook is the play tonight, especially with Luka not 100%.
Yeah, and when we move down the point guard list, we talked about it last night in the podcast. I mean, this position is one of the deeper ones we've had all year from top to bottom. I mean, we have the elite tier in Luka and Westbrook, and then this mid-tier has good plays aplenty. John Moran at home against Orlando. Ricky Rubio coming off the game of his season, triple-doubling. Kobe White, who I already proclaimed off-air, is going for 40 actual against Cleveland tonight. And on the flip side, Colin Sexton. And I'll even throw Alfred Payton's name out there because he gets Washington. I mean, why don't you break down this mid-tier? Because I think a lot of people are going to go here as, especially on FanDuel, as their point guard 2, with a lot of ownership going Russell Westbrook's way. But why don't you break down this mid-tier? Because there are a lot of elite plays.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe White's probably one of the better plays tonight. He's going to be in the starting lineup. It hasn't really mattered coming off the bench. He's still been playing big minutes, at least 34 minutes in the last 3. Over the last 8 games, he's averaging almost 27 points, over 4 assists. He's got a usage rate of 27%, and he's getting the Cavaliers, who are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. Sexton has played big minutes. He's taken advantage of some of the injuries the Cavs have, as Porter remains out, Garland is out. So he's at least 29.2 FanDuel points in 6 of the last 7 games. Peyton's got a good matchup here against the Wizards. He had 48.8 FanDuel points against them on February 12th. So there's a lot of good plays here. Derek White gets a boost with DeJounte Murray being out, although it looks like LaMarcus Aldridge's probably going to play. Shaquille Harrison been playing big minutes. So I know he's probably going to scare some people. But, look, he's going against the Cavs and the minutes are there. So, and let's go to your favorite guy at the bottom, Dellavedova. who's probably going to play big minutes again. He's got 2 straight double-doubles, 25 assists over the last 2 games, and you got to think he's going to get big minutes again.
Please don't do that. Don't do that. Take it back. Not my favorite guy. Listen, we talked about it last night, and I don't want to play slates with Cleveland because they're all chalky, and the chalk is hitting right now, but they suck. And I know their head coach just got this giant, extension, Bickerstaff, and good for him. But Matthew Dellavedova, I mean, we've known who Matthew Dellavedova is for years. I think an elite pivot you have right here in the playbook is DJ Augustine, who, if you just look at the ownership projections, if you want to get contrarian and at the same price tag, $3,900. I mean, 26 plus minutes in back-to-back games, and we know he can score. And big pace-up spot for Orlando. So, I mean, I think Delly's fine. Don't get me wrong. Definitely not my favorite player. That is, let me just get that out there. Also, Fancy wants us to know Steph Curry has the coronavirus. That's what he just messaged me. Yeah.
Another cheap point guard who I put at the top of the playbook, wrote up some plays that are in there, is Patty Mills on DK. He's 3,100. So, it's real cheap. It's always the Spurs with the minutes, but with no DeJounte Murray, he's going to get some minutes tonight. So if you want to save some money on DK at near minimum, 3,100 for Patty Mills.
Yeah, and if he gets hot, I mean, he's a streaky shooter. If he gets hot, I mean, he's going to be on the floor, and we could see literally 25 actual points out of Patty Mills. He may only get you 1 assist or 1 rebound to go along with that 25 extra, but 3,100, it still crushes 5x evaluation. So I do like Patty Mills up top. You also do have Shabazz Napier written up top, who is without Ish Smith tonight. You still like Napier for, probably tournaments only.
Yeah, I think you can go there. Jerome Robinson's a game time call there. The other guy that I put in there, we'll get is Troy Brown. He's cheap, 3,700 on DK in that spot against the Knicks. So, some of those Wizards become appealing since they are shorthanded.
Let's move over to shooting guard, where I think we have an interesting dilemma, because James Harden is currently going to garner all the ownership, as we see at his current projection at 45% over on FanDuel. Bradley Beal, who nobody ever plays, is just that, 4% projection over on DraftKings. I mean, I get that Harden is at, in a game total with 250 essentially, but do you think about pivoting to Beal if you're multi-entering, or do you think about pivoting to Beal? I think there's a better question if you're only making one lineup.
Yeah, I think you can. Look, we know Harden's in a smash spot tonight, but especially on FanDuel, where people have to start the 2 shooting guards, I think people are going to be more inclined to go to him. But you can save some money with Beal. Again, there's a lot of value on this slate, so you can do a lot of different things. But yeah, I don't think you have to play Harden tonight.
Cash games though for Harden, right? All formats, but like if you're spending up on one guy tonight, it was Anthony Davis when we were talking last night when we figured LeBron would sit. If you're spending up on one guy tonight, is it Harden or is it someone else?
I think it's Westbrook for me.
Westbrook? Okay. Yeah. Okay, and I have a hard time disagreeing because Minnesota is a dumpster fire on defense. So, I agree there. Let's move down the list. Devin Booker. We talked about his price tag, but look, it's very expensive, but it is Portland, and that's very appealing. DeMar DeRozan is interesting to me. LaMarcus Aldridge had been upgraded to probable, and we hadn't been getting the greatest version of DeRozan lately. Does that worry you at all with Aldridge returning, or do you think that more attention is now going to go towards Aldridge and maybe DeRozan can play his game a little bit better?
Yeah, I probably am because of this slate. I don't think we need to go to DeRozan now. And his ownership, I don't know if it's going to drop. Yeah, if it's going to be this high, I'm not playing him in tournaments because Aldridge is back. You got some of the other guards. And the one thing DeRozan has done is his assists are way up. But if he's going to have this ownership, I'm not playing him with Aldridge on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and it's not like we're getting him for free either. He's $8,000 on FanDuel. That's a tough pill to swallow. You could pay $200 more for Devin Booker
Yeah,
in a matchup against Portland.
I would rather do that.
Or you could drop down, save $1,100 to go to Karis LeVert on FanDuel. We've seen the upside of Karis LeVert recently. You can even go further down and play another piece of this Minnesota-Houston game in Malik Beasley. Or you could play Terrence the Sauce Ross, as I coined, not Fensty. That is my nickname, not Fensty's. So I think, and even I'll throw Damian Lee's hat into the ring because now there's no Stephen Curry. All probably higher priorities than DeRozan, right?
Yeah, Beasley would be the guy that I'm looking at in that matchup. He's taken 41 shots from the field the last 2 games. And again, the Rockets just can't stop anyone right now. So he's prevented a nice floor over the last few games. So Beasley would be the guy of that group that I like the most.
I think, and I want your take too. If I'm building one lineup tonight, Adam, right? I think there is no chance that I miss out on having at least, I would say, a minimum of 3 guys from Minnesota-Houston. That is a minimum of 3 guys from Minnesota-Houston. Do you agree? Or do you think that there's enough elsewhere on this slate that we don't need to go overboard on this game?
Yeah, no, I think you got to get a piece of this game. I mean, it's even if the number doesn't go over, you got to think it's going to be at least 240 with the way these teams are playing lately. It's going to be such a high-paced game, no defense. So, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to. And you know, there's a guy we'll talk about later that is a really good price that I think is kind of a lock and load for me at the power forward spot tonight.
I like the little cliffhanger there. Also, quick over under. Are we taking the over or are we taking the under there?
I'm not putting money on it. I think I would take the over, and
I would too.
I think a lot of money is coming in on the over because I think it opened at 246, went down to 244, and now it's up to 249. So that means a lot of the money is coming in on the over.
I agree, and that's because the pace of this game is going to be crazy, and there's going to be no defense, as you mentioned. So I too would take the over if I was betting on this game. Let's move over to small forward, where both of us were pretty bullish on Paul George last night on the podcast. I don't think that's changed much. Lou Williams ruled out for that Clippers second unit, and we've seen Paul George play with that second unit before. I think that actually makes for a pretty big deal for the Clippers as a whole. I mean, Lou Williams is a high usage player when he's on the floor, so I think we both pretty much agree that Paul George and the price tag, right? We also pair with the price tag, the minutes, everything with Paul George. But the rest of the small forward position is interesting. I see a Cavalier, so like I'm not even going to mention his name. I'll let you talk about him. But T.J. Warren, Mikal Bridges, and Otto Porter could all be quite interesting here in the mid-tier.
Yeah, I think Bridges is in a pretty good spot. He's been playing enormous minutes without Kelly Oubre on the floor, at least 36 minutes in 6 consecutive games. He's got at least 30 FanDuel points in 4 of the last 6, and he just faced the Blazers on Friday and had 34 FanDuel points. So for his price point, I think he's certainly a solid play. I know you don't want to talk about Seti Osman, but he's cheap, man. I mean, I wouldn't play him on DK at 54, but at 4,400, he's playing huge minutes, at least 36 minutes in the last 4 games. Again, no Porter, no Garland, and he's got at least 23 FanDuel points in each. So, yeah, in a cash game, he should be able to get you 5, 6X, maybe 7. So that's a way to save some money.
So I know you have Troy Brown written up at the top of your playbook. We just got official word on the Wizards starting lineup. Jerome Robinson will play. He will also start at small forward tonight. Does that, kind of take you off Brown? Or do you think, Isaac Bonga is not playing, so I don't know if that matters to you at all because it's Isaac Bonga, but do you still have any interest in Troy Brown? Or does that interest shift to Jerome Robinson now?
Yeah, I think you could still use Brown because I think he's still going to get, 25, 30 minutes off the bench. So I think you still can. And Robinson's okay as well. I
agree. And I've been a proponent of Jerome Robinson. Scott Brooks loves the guy. Don't know why, but he loves him. And one more play you have written down in the playbook in the value tier, Rudy Gay, who probably not is probably no longer an option. LaMarcus Aldridge, as of 1 minute ago, will officially play. So Rudy Gay probably off our player pool. Let's move over to power forward. I'm curious to your opinion on Anthony Davis because personally, I still think he's too cheap. And what we've done for 3 years now, and I know DeAndre Jordan's in town, so maybe they're a little bit better defensively against centers, is play guys against Brooklyn, especially in the front court. There's no Dwight Howard. So we could potentially see more Anthony Davis at center tonight. I mean, they're not going to play JaVale McGee more than 20 minutes, right? So that pretty much puts Davis as the backup center. 9,800 is too cheap, in my opinion, Adam. I still think if he's not the top play, I think he's one of the 3 best. And at sub 10% ownership, he can win you a tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's still in play. I think you could use him. It's a good matchup here against the Nets. I know they're double-digit favorites, but maybe the game is close. They're coming off some emotional wins recently with the Bucks and Clippers. So I still think they'll win, but maybe this game stays a little bit more competitive. And Davis should put up big numbers here. So for the price, I think he's still in play.
The rest of the position is pretty elite, and we talked about it. We pretty much settled on point guard and power forward being powerhouses on this position. Kristaps Porzingis, a power forward over on FanDuel, center on DraftKings, still priced up. Could still potentially be without Luka. I think if there's no Luka, I mean, Porzingis probably becomes arguably the top per dollar spend of the slate, just considering what he's done with and without Luka. I mean, he's been tremendous. Other than the last game, he's been tremendous. And then I think this mid-tier is really intriguing because we have Julius Randle going up against Washington where he's dominated this season. We have Aaron Gordon still too cheap. There's still so many injuries in Orlando, and Aaron Gordon has taken on a much bigger role. Kevin Love against the Bulls front court, a front court that's bottom 5 against both power forwards and centers. And then Robert Covington, who I think that's the cliffhanger you were leaving us all on, is, for whatever reason, only 6,200 across the industry.
Yeah, that is the guy for sure. I mean, his price never rises. I understand the last couple games. He has struggled in 2 of the last 3, but he's been really good since he's come over to Houston. It's going up against his former team. And, he just, in this environment, in this pace tonight, I expect at least 40 fantasy points with potentially more. So he's reached at least 40 in 3 of his last 5 on DK. So really good spot. We're getting him at a good price. So I think he's a guy that you definitely want to have in your lineups tonight. Porzingis is a great tournament play. We talked about it on the podcast. No one is going to really want to play him tonight because he's coming off such a terrible game. Mm-hmm. But he's been great before that, and the Spurs are not good defensively. So I think he's a very interesting tournament play because no one's really going to want to spend up. They're either going to go to Davis or they're going to go with Covington. Randall, great matchup against the Wizards. He's crushed them this year. 35 points, 30 points, 21 points, 2 double-doubles against them. So he's been playing well. Gordon seems like no one really wants to play him, but he's been playing great and is in a pace-up spot against the Grizzlies. And Orlando's actually been putting up points lately. All of a sudden, they were like a real slow-paced team, but they've been scoring a ton and playing these high-scoring games. So, there's a lot of good options at power forward tonight.
If Luka Doncic is officially ruled out, right, let's just play a hypothetical. Is Porzingis, does he vault ahead of Russell Westbrook as your top play of the slate?
Yes.
I agree. Tentatively.
I think both.
I think you can because there is a ton of value, especially. I mean, look, we could definitely play them both on FanDuel. Like you could play anybody on FanDuel. I think DraftKings is harder, but there's some really good value, and we touched on that.
Go with Patty Mills and Troy Brown, 31 and 37. There you go. You could still get in Covington, Westbrook, Porzingis. So I think it can be done.
And I'll just probably throw in Della.
Oh, Della! There you go.
I thought that's what you were going to lead off with, and I was super sad about it. Bottom of your power forward position, we have James Johnson, who we talked about. I mean, look, exposure to Minnesota, Houston, and you have Juancho Hernangomez written up at the top. I think both are perfectly fine. One can go off, one can suck, but both of them have shown that they can play together because, one's on the second unit, one starts, and they both could put up 30 fantasy points. And then Marquise Chris, who is a center on DraftKings. He's been freaking great the last 2 games, over 40 fantasy points. Is Chris at his price tag in this matchup one of our favorite center plays of the slate?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some good centers up top, but if you're not spending on center, I like Chris. I mean, 6 on both sites, and a double in 3 of the last 5 games. The Clippers have been vulnerable against bigs. He's got 43 and 45 the last 2 games. So, he just I think he's in a good spot. So yeah, I do like him tonight. The ownership, we're seeing 10, 11%. I thought it actually would be lower, but I think people are starting to realize how good he's been playing. I
mean, hey, I'll still take a 10% on Marquise Chris in tournaments because he's given us 40-point upside, and we're not getting an elevated price tag at all. So, sure, sign me up. But there are some top-tier options you have here at center in Nikola Vucevic, Hassan Whiteside, and Andre Drummond. Who are you prioritizing of those 3, if any, in, let's say in a cash game format? Do you have a specific center that at the top that you would like to use in cash?
Yeah, Drummond going up against the Bulls. We're finally seeing the minutes. That was the concern. We weren't seeing 30 minutes since he's come over recently. But with Tristan Thompson out, they should be there. The last 2 games, 33 and 36 minutes, 57.8 and 60.3 DK points. So the Bulls allow the second most fantasy points to center. So I like him. He's only 8,200 on FanDuel. Vucevic certainly in a good spot again. He's been playing great, 10 double-doubles in the last 12 games. And Whiteside certainly always in play, a double-double in 13 straight games. And he just faced the Suns on Friday, had 23 points, 20 boards, and 4 blocks.
So Mitchell Robinson is currently listed as questionable. He came down with an illness about halfway through the day. If he plays, he is not going to be owned at all. Literally at all. I mean, we are projecting less than 2% owned on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Would you take a dart on Mitch Robinson? Also, Aaron Baines is the best player in the NBA. Do we have love for him? Do we have love for Robinson? Or are we just going to play Marquise Chris when it comes down to the middle tier and or spend up?
Sounds like Ayton is probably going to play, so that would eliminate Baines. Robinson certainly is in play for tournaments, and that game is 7 p.m. Eastern, so we should have the news beforehand. But he's got 3 double-doubles in the last 4 games, and the Wizards are not good against bigs, and he's just got big upside. So for tournaments, he's always in play. So, yeah, that's the way I would look at it there. But it does sound like Ayton's going to play. And Harrell's not a bad play either. Right. Because with Lou Williams out, he could do a little bit more with the second unit. So Harrell's another option to go with Lou Williams out.
And you also have JaVale written up top. And I know, we can't necessarily completely predict what his minutes are going to be, but we don't see a lot of minutes regardless of situation. Do you think with Howard out, we could see McGee approach 25 or so? And I think if JaVale McGee plays 25 minutes, he could be a really elite option here.
Yeah, it's possible. That's why I've kind of put him in there. He's cheap, so he's a different way to go, on DK. There's several players under 4K tonight, so he could be one of those options. And going against the Nets, he could get there in 20 minutes.
He could definitely get there in 20 minutes. Just a lineup note, Derek White will start tonight at point guard for San Antonio. Who you have in the playbook, he is projected to be very popular in DraftKings, not so much on FanDuel, but I think that ownership will come around a little bit considering he is in the starting lineup. Adam, it is 6:31. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, some news is going to break. I don't know what, but I feel like something's going to happen.
Unfortunately, the Dallas-San Antonio game is at 8, so Dallas has no obligation to get it out before lineup block. I'm sure it will come at about 7:01. I'll give him 7:03 will be my prediction for Luka Doncic news ruled out 7:03. So FanDuel, adjust cannot adjust accordingly, DraftKings do so. But big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Both slated content, live stream included, but we'll catch you then.